Yeah, I mean that's the thing, isn't it? Keeping these places wild for sure. I mean, it comes down to the people. Um, it really does things like what you're doing yourself and getting a bit of footfall and movement behind these type of things. Like I said earlier, I don't think you realize what's there until it's gone sometimes.
Yeah.
And by that stage, it's too late. Reading into what I've read and what I've experienced around the world is these companies will bring only what they see as benefits and positives, and they read fantastic on paper and articles, and they bring work and jobs. But I really, from my experience, these things are exploited for profit and money, and they'll leave behind their mess, and that'll be that, and it'll be too late. And I really think a large company coming over to the small hills of Sperrins and saying that it's going to be environmentally friendly and this, that, and the other, I really struggle to see that. I would say it's mainly exploited for the commodities and the profit, and then when they're done, they'll leave, and they'll leave behind what they've done. You know.
Welcome to the Save Our Sperrins campaign, Voices from the Frontline. I'm Morella Fife, your host and a member of the Save Our Sperrins team. At the heart of this struggle are the voices of local people, farmers, families and young campaigners whose homes, work and families are rooted in this place. Their voices are joined by supporters from across the world, standing in solidarity, from professors to artists, from those offering vast expertise to those whose presence alone is an act of support. All have stood with us. In this series, we share stories of resistance, resilience, and hopes from those determined to protect these mountains, their land, their rivers, the very air they breathe, and their community. Let's get started. Kelan Grant grew up on the edge of the Sperrins, where the hills were his playground long before they became his profession. Born and raised in Omagh, he took the love of that wild open country and turned it into a life on two wheels. Now based in Morzine in the French Alps, Kelan rides and races professionally, most recently with the Wild Gravity team, competing in some of the toughest enduro events in Europe. He's an Irish enduro champion and winner of the Red Bull Fox Hunt. But what stands out most is the quiet determination and joy he's carried from his early days, tearing through the heather above his home. Earlier this year, a serious crash left him with a broken vertebrae, a stark reminder of the risks that come with the life he loves. Yet even in recovery, his connection to the mountains remains unbroken. In our conversation, we talk about the freedom and resilience the uplands gives young people, what happens when those wild places are lost, and why protecting them matters, not just for nature, but for the well-being and spirit of the next generation. Welcome, Kelan, to the podcast, and thanks so much for agreeing to come on from where you are in Morzine in France today. How are you? And can you tell me a little bit about your life at the minute, what you're up to, and so on?
No bother. First of all, thanks for having me. My pleasure being on. Yeah, life is good at the minute. I cannot complain. We are right in the middle of the heart of the French Alps, just outside the town called Morzine, which is kind of the mecca of the European mountain biking base. So that's kind of why we moved here. And yeah, just living our wee lives, a chalet life, nice and quiet, small neighbourhood, a couple of neighbours, and riding our bikes when we can. Currently, life's a little bit quiet. I had an injury a couple of months ago. So I broke my back about 2 months ago. So right now, it's just every day is focusing on recovery for me and get back out and into the outdoors.
Yeah, I was aware of your injury, all right, and I'm sure it must have been a hell of a shock at the time. Hopefully the recovery is going well, and are you back on the bike? Yeah,
back on the road bike. Taking it easy day by day. It's not a very linear recovery. You kind of get a couple of good days, and then a week or two, so kind of feeling sore and stiff, and then trying to get back at it again. But the last week or so has actually been really good, starting to feel myself move a bit more like I used to. Just trying to get mobility back and strength in the back is kind of the main thing. But I think the really hard part's kind of over now. So yeah.
Yeah. Often watching you as youngsters and my own son mountain biking and what you were doing coming down, I often wondered why you bothered using a bike at all. You could just jump off the mountain.
Well, that's basically what I did this time, but it wasn't intended.
Thinking back to your childhood, Kelan, how did you first get into biking? And was there a moment or a place in the Sperrins that sparked it, or can you just tell us a little bit about that?
I guess as a kid we were always cycling, and I remember getting our first bikes. I think our first bikes were won in like a newspaper magazine through mum and dad, something like that anyway, and we got heavily involved with it then. I remember my first experience sort of mountain biking was, I remember my brother Paddy, he would always head up to Glen just edge of Gorton Forest, with his friends, and I was sort of too young to go at the time. Paddy was, he was old enough to go up by himself. We also shared a bike as well. So, there was that sort of fight going on who got the bike. But eventually, I got the go ahead to actually go up to Glengowna and by myself and meet them up there, sort of thing, and build trails and experience what it was to start mountain biking, and was kind of hooked from then ever since.
What age were you, do you reckon, when you started going?
I'd say it would have been early teens.
Okay.
Riding around on bikes and all. I mean, that was sort of from a young age. I think most kids were doing that, but they actually go up into the hills and do a bit of mountain biking was kind of early teens.
Right.
That's how I got into it. Glengowna was kind of the closest corner of the forest to Knockmoyle, where I was brought up. So that was kind of the gateway into the forest.
So, growing up in that kind of a childhood and that kind of freedom, and okay, I know this managed forestry where you were working, but really it was at the edge of the Sperrins, and it took you out onto the broader mountain, where you really a lot of access to untamed landscape. How do you think it shaped your confidence or your curiosity or your sense of freedom as a young person?
Massively. I think heading up there to the edge of the forest in Glengowna was only just the tip of the iceberg for us, where that was kind of just our main base where we hung out and we dug some small trails, but we had so much access to the rest of the forest, the rest of Gorton Glens. And just that ability and that freedom to kind of just roam as you please and safely as well was kind of the main thing for us. There was no real boundaries on where we could go and where we could ride our bikes. There was also a great bunch of lads that did it together. And it kind of just definitely shaped us to who we are, for sure. Learn a lot of life skills, how to be out by yourself and be in the forest with a group of young lads. It was a great time looking back on it. It definitely was a huge part of who I am today and how it shaped me and how my actual life's actually the road it's went down, for sure.
So if you hadn't had such easy access to all of the Sperrins, your life might have taken a different
100%,
path.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would definitely, especially Gorton Glens, owe a lot to that place. I spent countless hours in there, riding bikes, doing training, building tracks, and essentially that's just what I'm doing today in a different place at a higher level, and that's kind of where it all started for me.
Okay, that brings us kind of neatly back to my next question. So when you're not injured and you're in the full of your health, what does the day-to-day life of a professional mountain bike look like? Could you just describe it to someone who's never done that?
Yeah. It's very different to your normal life. I wouldn't change it for anything. Today, in particular, Monday would be the International Day of Rest, so that's a chill day for me normally on a Monday. And Tuesday to Sunday are kind of hell for leather training sessions. It normally consists of about 2 training sessions every day. Maybe a Friday would be one easy session, but in the summer months here, for example, based in Morzine, we have access to chairlifts
Right.
that bring right into Switzerland and back into France. And that's thousands and thousands of kilometers of trails here that you can use the lift and go down, or pedal up and go down, whatever suits you fancy. And basically that's what I spend most of my time doing, would be time on the road bike, time on the mountain bike, time in the gym, time kind of perfecting your racecraft for when you go racing. And then the other side of that, of course, is actually races, which can last up to a week long. Normally arriving to a venue, normally not too far from where I'm based now. On a Tuesday, that could be walking tracks, getting familiar with the venue and the terrain, and then spending anything from Thursday to Friday right up until Sunday actually racing the venue. So that would normally consist of about anything from 15 to 20 venues a year around Europe at the moment.
Right. So where have you ridden in mountains across the world? Off the top of your head, where have you competed?
All over. I've spent a couple of months in New Zealand and Australia. That's probably the furthest. Been Tasmania actually being one of them as well. It's even further again, so a small island off Australia. Spent a bit of time in Santiago in Chile. That was a good experience for me. I think a week after that, we spent 2 weeks in Manizales in Colombia.
Right.
So these are kind of the ones that are outside Europe.
Yeah.
And quite a bit of time in Whistler in Canada as well. A huge mountain bike facility over there. If there anyone to go off, they're the ones that are doing it absolutely right. They're taking the mountains to their full advantage. And then, all corners of Europe, Poland, France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, everywhere. Really, it's ticked off a lot of countries now in the last couple of years, but mainly the last year or two has been based in Europe. After COVID, I think the sort of international travel took a bit of a hit, and venues are kind of based themselves closer to the Italian and French Alps, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I moved here as well. So it just makes transport a lot easier.
And I believe you moved over to e-bike racing in the last year or so. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just modern technology evolving into the sports that we do. E-bikes are getting a lot more popular, especially here in Europe. If you see a bike now, it's more than likely going to be an e-bike over a normal bike.
Okay.
And that's just transferring into the racing side of things. To the naked eye, it looks very similar. Wearing the full face with goggles, sending down hills as fast as we can. It's just got a motor involved now, which a lot of people think that's a lot easier. It sounds a lot easier because you're assisted by a motor, but I can guarantee you that it's not. They just use the terrain and challenge us a lot more, and use technical climbs that you couldn't get up on a normal bike, and use the e-bike assistance to do that. And you get timed on it as well. So now we have uphill stages as well as sort of gravity fed downhill stages. Still doing both, still doing a bit of e-bike and normal bike now as well, but just opens up a lot more doors. There's a lot more sponsors that are keen to get into that side of things. That's the way the industry seems to be kind of going, is down the line of e-bikes. A lot of development goes into that, so it'd be silly not to get involved. And to me, it's more bike time. If there's most of the hills and terrain around here is up to 1,000 meter, if not 2,000 meter mountains, and it's steep to get to the top. And if I can get to the top a little bit quicker and do it 2 or 3 times rather than one, I'm all about it.
Yeah, great stuff. So when you're in those high mountains and you think back to the Sperrins, which really are hills in comparison, not dramatic, but are you sort of, what do they represent for you, maybe culturally or emotionally? So from your heart, when you think back into the Sperrins, and you could be in the most beautiful mountains in the world,
Mhm.
how did they show up for you?
To me, it's home. Like I still absolutely love getting back there and how it's developed over the years to when I first started going there. Back when I said when we went to that small corner in Glengowna off the edge of Gorchin, seemed like the only place to go there on a bike, really, for specific sort of trails. And now it's kind of spread out where Gorchin actually has its own mountain bike trails, has a lot more access when it comes to paths and walks for people to do, which I think is fantastic. And to me, they still are mountains because when I first arrived there as a kid on my bike, these hills were absolutely huge. It was only until I travelled a bit further afield into Europe and realised that they are quite small and they are tiny hills compared to what else was out there in the rest of the world. But to me, it's really home. It's where it all started for me. That's the connection. Going up, digging tracks with your friends, it was just like a base to meet and be outdoors and exercise as well was one of the main things.
I don't know if you realise, Keelan, but they have been exploring for minerals up in Glenhorgel, which is about a mile away from where I live here right now. And it is rumoured that the exploration has found a reasonable amount of gold to merit further exploration and drilling. We do know that it's not good quality, it's poor grade, so therefore for it to be processed will require immense quantities of rock and earth to be removed and immense quantities of chemicals to be used in the processing. In the exploratory drilling, you might think it's fairly harmless, but it does go, every exploratory drill goes down through our water table. And of course, they use drilling fluids to enable the drilling to occur. Now, I know up in the Greencastle area, they've had something like 600 to 900 exploratory drills into the ground, which are supposedly then capped by the mining company. However, who's monitoring that? And it's supposed to be the mining company. And how could anyone trust what the mining company says if there's no one else monitoring it? Then here in Glenhorgel, one might argue, oh, that's Morella going off at the deep end because it's NIMBYism. But actually, isn't NIMBYism great? And for anyone that's not familiar with that phrase, not in my backyard. Because if it wasn't people living close to where these things occur, we wouldn't have any idea of the pollution and the wrecking of the environment that is occurring. And that's why perhaps in places like British Columbia and Alaska and south of the Arctic Circle, a lot of companies, mining companies, there's thousands of mines up there which have been abandoned with billions of litres of chemicals leaching into the subsoil. Also, with the collapse of the permafrost because of global warming, all these so-called tailings ponds, which are in fact hectares and hectares of mining waste, are beginning to be impacted. The waste dams are in a state of collapse, and it's not a matter of if, but when they will collapse. And this is the same story the world over. So this is why we're so concerned here at Kelan about them exploring here locally in Glenhorgel. But also we know that the footprint of this mine will be huge and it'll spread right across the Sperrins. And what they say they're going to do and what we actually will end up could be 2 or 3 or 4 times bigger than what goes into the original planning application. How does that make you feel?
To be honest, the the most I know about it, since I haven't been home that much in the last couple of years, is basically just news articles, what I've read.
Yeah.
What I can gather from it, what I built from it is it seems to be a bit of a money racket where companies they are exploiting the ground for profit. It seems to be, and I have read articles where they s- they tend to be doing it in the most environmental way possible. I really find that hard to believe, like what's they actually do and the chemicals they use and the processes they use to actually mine these commodities out of the ground. It just can't really be environmentally friendly, can it? Like what they do, how they dig up the ground, the infrastructure built around it, the transport used to get commodities and minerals in and out. It just, as much as they sell it as like an environmentally friendly plan, I just can't see it being that. And to be honest, it being a company, I think the company's Canadian, isn't it? The
Yeah.
company's Canadian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's already.
Yeah, I just, I can't see it being all sunshine and rainbows when they come in and start this project. Yeah, so they'll find plenty of commodities, I'm sure, in the Sperrin, gold and copper and silver, I'm sure. But I just think the aftermath of what they would leave behind is probably a lot worse than what people think. And it's also that case of it could be too late by the time it happens, and then what's done is done, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, and all of what you say is very true. Really, what it is the extractivism at its worst, taking all the wealth out of the place. When it doesn't need to be taken, it is only gold. That's what they're after. Though more recently they're talking about this critical mineral of tellurium. Whilst mining tellurium gives our own local mining company an excuse to mine, we do know that they're after the gold. However, getting back to critical minerals, these are designated minerals from both the EU and the USA to enable the so-called green transition. Turns out, in actual fact, they're being mined for the arms industry to enable the war to keep going in Ukraine and the genocide to keep going in Palestine. So here we are, lovely Northern Ireland, party to a war machine enabling genocide. However, here it's predominantly gold, and because it's low grade, they must use chemicals, and those chemicals, at the end of the day, have to be left somewhere out at the end of the process, and so it requires then everlasting maintenance of my tailings ponds. They create these reservoirs of toxic chemicals, and the company is only going to be there for max 30 years, mightn't even be there 30 years, and then they leave this legacy to the local community, and what company, even no matter how green their credentials might be and so on, is going to be there more, and say, right, we're going to look after this forevermore. It ain't going to happen. It's going to come back to us. And then, of course, they will leak every, and we have on professional advice that every tailings pond ever they will collapse. Like it's not a matter of if, it's when, and we're leaving a legacy for future generations. So putting that down for a minute, how does it feel when you know the hills you grew up in exploring are now under threat from industrialization and mining?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, the Sperrins, Scorching Glens, that general area is just such a safe haven for me where I can go and I know I can just disappear for a couple hours at a time or a day at a time. And it's just that safe haven where it's quiet. Anyone you meet up there is up there doing the same thing as you, just getting out into the wilderness experience and whatever they want to experience, wildlife, quiet time. The facilities are there just to get away from the general rat race of what is life these days. And I don't think people would really understand what this would be, the consequences of that could potentially be, where this could turn into something, quite industrial and take that away from the area. And I think once it's done as well. To me, it's just a safe haven, a quiet zone where I can go, I can do my training, I can be outside, no matter the weather, and have access to those trails and fire roads in the glens, and that's just basically what it is for me.
We often talk about protecting the land for future generations. What does that mean to you now when you think about when young people growing up now? Do you
Yeah,
feel?
I mean, looking further down the line, I'm sure at some point I'd like to settle down and have a few mini Kelans running around, and I'd love to bring them to the places where I went and experienced what I experienced and led into the life that I live right now. And I'd really like it to be much the same, if not progressed in a positive way, where that could be more access for people, more walking paths, more trails, more greater ability for people to come experience the Sperrins and the glens, not pointing up to a hill that used to be where you were allowed to go. That was access, land that was accessible for all people, and now it's not, because it's maybe fenced off and you're not allowed to go into certain areas because it potentially could be toxic, or you're just basically not allowed in because it's fenced off for those companies to do what they want to do. That, I think that would be a worst case scenario, really. I'd love it to just be somewhere you can go, and that's where I went 20 years ago, and show the younger generation that you're allowed to be there, and it's free, and it's open, and it's the same as it always once was, untouched.
You've seen how other countries value and protect their mountain environments. Do you think at home here we understand what we have and that we put it to its best use, per se, like where we put people, where the health of people is at the forefront of everything that we do, the health and well-being of people?
I would say we're coming round to it. In Ireland, a lot of forests are, they're creating these walkways and paths and reasons and excuses for people to explore the outdoors. A lot more accessible with like places to park, play parks for kids, cafes and stuff like that, mountain bike trails, walking paths. I do think they are coming around to it. When you see the rest of the world, we're miles behind in terms of that. Like where I'm based now at the minute in Morzine, is in the summer is absolutely crazy with tourists and walkers and mountain bikers, and then obviously in the winter it's skiing and snowboarding heavy. But I would say over the last couple of years, compared to when I was going to Gortin first, when my father would have brought me up gorging and hill walking, etc., with groups, and you had to get a key to get into the car park, and the car park was overgrown with moss and grass. And now you can actually just drive in there and park up and go for a walk. So that to me, that's progression, for sure. Then people having a place for their kids to go to the play park, a cafe to sit down, right in the middle of the trees. It feels like in the middle of nowhere, and have a coffee, and then take their family off for a walk or a bike ride or whatever they fancy doing. Back when I was first introduced to Gortin, it wasn't quite that. It was a bit more closed off. Gates were closed. There wasn't many car park facilities for people. It wasn't that inviting. So I'd say we're definitely taking a step in the right direction with more access, more trails, and stuff like that. But I would say we're still a good few steps behind other regions and other countries for sure.
Yeah, we've come a long way. I remember myself how we used to go up there. We had the place to ourselves. Was never anyone else in it, you know.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And
And the place is big enough where if you walk 2 or 3 miles out of the main car park, you do have the place to yourself, and
that's
that's
right.
kind of the beauty of it, you know.
Yeah.
You definitely.
Yeah. From your perspective, as someone who works in and depends on the natural landscape, what do you think we lose culturally or emotionally when wild places become industrial zones? You must have seen other mountains around the world where, you know, perhaps there was industrialization taking place, perhaps mining over that mountain there or what have you. You must have come across it, perhaps, maybe not. So what do you think is lost?
Well, I can think of two kind of experiences on that, not particularly mining, but just in terms of like deforestation, where I know that the forestry have contracts on trees for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they have the right to cut down trees. But just for my experience, would be like the place we're talking about, Glen, where we first started mountain biking and we had our trails. It's completely deforested now, and it's not there anymore where we used to ride. So that in particular, we're talking about maybe the younger generation and showing them where places where I spent my time and where I learned my trade and craft. It's gone now.
Mm-hmm.
It's been completely deforested. Another in the opposite side of the world in Tasmania, they have a huge bike park, and it's growing to be one of the best in the world. It's super remote. 1 mile from the bike park is literally what they call the end of the line where the road stops, and it's just wilderness and protected land for thousands of miles. So that's quite cool. And one of the problems they have at the moment is deforestation, where they're actually cutting down some of the oldest trees in the world. And I got to see these trees, which was quite special. And it was something that I generally wouldn't have thought of until I actually went there and seen it. These trees are, you would never believe how big they are. The trunks themselves are like small houses. They are ridiculously big.
Yeah.
You know, spanning from like 5 to 8 meters wide at the base. And these are like protected lands, but they're coming in and they're destroying them right up to the bike park and through the bike parks. So they're going through that process at the minute.
Right.
And of quite a strong fight. And to me, it's you see the signs everywhere about deforestation, leave our trees alone and stuff. And to be honest, I wouldn't have thought much of it because you see it happening all the time. But when you actually see these trees in person,
yeah,
you're like, how could you possibly cut these things down? Like they're phenomenal to see in person. And the fact that they're cutting them down, and then it affects us where it's actually cutting into the bike park now because it's forestry land, and that'll destroy a lot of the bike park as well. So that's kind of my experience with that.
Yeah. It's I think that's really it. That a lot of people don't realize the value of what's been lost in nature to be put to some use. In a lot of cases, and I'm not sure if this is the case in Tasmania, the removal of trees and old growth, as they call it, old growth forest, is a precursor of clearing the way to allow roads to be built for mining to occur afterwards. So that would be what would happen there, or perhaps in British Columbia in Canada. It's not so much the case here in the Sperrins, because the area you're talking about, Glengowna and the forests, they're managed commercial forests and have been for years going back and will go years going forward. So whilst it impacts on the mountain bike community that they're cut down, those trails no longer exist, those forests will be back, and they are like they're actually plantation forests. So they're actually referred to as industrial forestry. They're plantation forests, and they have very little habitat associated with them. And they, if they've been planted with mixed forestry, mixed natives and things like that, the habitat associated would be the biodiversity would be a lot bigger, but because it's just single tree, it's monocropping. So whilst I can see it from your point of view, it doesn't really matter that they're cut down because it's already a debased environment there and has been for years. However, further up the Sperrins, where in relation to, say, for instance, the wind farms, and I'm not against wind per se, it has its place going forward, but they have to put in concrete into the bogs, massive slabs of concrete, and to do that they've got to remove the upland bog, which is a pristine environment, absolute pristine environment, and there's a huge amount of associated ecology with that. Then when the wind farm is over, say about 30 years time down the road, they'll build another, but they don't use the same concrete platform. They use a different platform because the old one is not. And then because it's concrete, it's alkaline, it changes the pH of the bog, it changes the whole environment. And of course, I don't know if you're aware, but the upland bogs have the same status for carbon capture as the forests in the Amazon. And every time we lose upland bog, we're releasing tons and tons more carbon into the atmosphere. Yeah. So, and it was just, we're going a little bit off piece here,
Yeah, well, that's what a podcast is for, isn't it? But I think it's just interesting. I think until, just back to the Tasmania story, until it's like in front of you and in your hometown, you don't really realize what it is when it's going on halfway across the world. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't affect you. It's when it's kind of in your front garden. Just another thing on that, the Tasmanian log. I think the main reason that the locals protest against it is because they're the oldest trees in the world. One of the trees they have in that forest in one of the areas that's going to get deplanted is like, I think it's one of the top 5 oldest trees in the world.
Right.
And it's just set to get cut down. And I think that's why they're so against it. But what I realized there, well, when I was there, I lived in Medina for 6 weeks just before a race. And what I noticed on the way to the bike park, the road was absolutely covered in dead wildlife. And it stunk. Like, I had to cycle there every day and it was absolutely stinking.
Right.
So it had like some koalas and I forget what you call those animals in Australia get everywhere. But I actually asked one of the guys who I was staying with, because it was so prominent there. I was like, why is there every 5 meters there's a dead animal?
Yeah.
It stinks. He says the loggers travel at night and they don't go slow. They get paid by the load, so they try to get as many in as they can. And he said that the amount of dead wildlife has increased like dramatically because, and it kind of hit me then. I was like, you'd have to see it to believe it. Every 5 meters, there's a couple of wallabies and kangaroos, and they're everywhere, and it stinks.
Yeah.
And it's because the loggers travel at night and they get paid by the rum, so they try to do as many at night as they can, and they don't slow down and they just kill the wildlife. So for them, for example, that's kind of on their front doorstep, and it's really hitting home what they're doing. And like I said, it's not until it's right in front of your eyes you realize that the problem can affect you.
Yeah. I spent some time in Tasmania back in, it's been around about 1984, or around about then. I ran it was a youth hostel called Loon River Youth Hostel down the southwest corner of Tasmania. And I was just fascinated by the whole place. It was such a fantastic wilderness. And then I was all up and around by Cradle Mountain, I think it was Cradle Mountain, which is in the same area, and why we're losing our pristine places in the world, and why just places can't be left to accommodate the wildlife, to allow the biodiversity and the ecology to keep on thriving, but it seems everywhere we go, mankind, we create a great devastation around us,
we always do something to mess it up, don't we?
Yeah, we seem to, Keelan, you spend more time in nature than most people ever will. Have the mountains taught you about being resilient or peace of mind, or what do the mountains give you?
I mean, get right to it. They give me the life that I live now. They give me the opportunity to do what I do for a living. Um, I spend a lot of time outside, no matter the weather. If it's sideways, snow or hail, I'll be outside doing the amount of training I'm supposed to be doing. That definitely builds resilience over time for sure. Your son Angus is a good example of that. He's as raw as they come. He spent countless days outside in the mountains on his road bike when the wind's been sideways and cold and shivering, but you just get the job done, and it absolutely builds resilience for sure. I guess it's just like I said about the Sperrins earlier, that kind of like safe haven, that that place where you go to be quiet and spend time outdoors. I think, yeah, I do it every day. Spend countless hours in the trees. Sometimes stop for up to half an hour and just kind of take it all in. Until you actually go out and experience that and do that, to realize how much it helps you in your day to day life, your general well being of just being outside. I think it helped me how to be a lot calmer in my day to day life. For sure, getting away from a laptop or something that's a wee bit more hectic at home or something like that, and that escape for sure has been a godsend to me. And a bonus to that is being able to turn in being outside riding bikes on trails has turned into my job now, my career, which has just been great. Like, yeah.
So when you were ill there and not able to participate, or did you notice a difference in your mental health?
100%. Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I would say, I think most people would say that I would have a decent head on my shoulders when it comes to racing and day to day life, and I didn't think it would affect me at all. And there was a period there for 6 weeks where the bone in my back had to be still to heal. So for a long period of time, that meant actually just going to the toilet where I lay and not getting up at all, until eventually being able to get up, go to the toilet, and stuff like that. And I'm sure people have had it a lot worse than me, but that has definitely had a huge effect for sure. And probably more and more as the time went on. Not even having the choice to go out and do it, just I wasn't able to go out and be outside.
Yeah.
When I was able to go outside, it was very much 20 to 50 meter walk and back and into the house. And yeah, it just took a toll on everyday decisions for sure. I wasn't making the right choices. I wasn't maybe talking to people as much as I used to. Um, and to me, it's just night and day, like what the outdoors, how it can just be natural medicine for sure. Yeah, I didn't think it would affect me as much as it would. I would consider myself a bulletproof and can't be touched, but that was definitely a hard 2 months for me for sure. And now, just the last 2 weeks, being able to get out and enjoy like the autumn here now, the last autumn has just been night and day, absolutely night and day. I just feel like I'm back to being my normal self again.
The invincibility of youth, huh?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I thought I could never be cracked, but yeah, it definitely got to me being stuck indoors.
Yeah.
If somebody didn't have the access to do what I can do, I think I would find it very tough.
So, I know occasionally when I've been laid low or whatever, you get a diagnosis with something, it changes your attitude and it changes your empathy towards others. You kind of get it. You kind of, wow.
Yeah, totally. Definitely does. Yeah, like I wouldn't say I would have been a pleasure to be around the last 6 weeks for sure.
God have faith.
Faye has, yeah, she's been a saint. She's put up with a lot. But for sure. Like the last 2 weeks getting tired and enjoying the weather that we have here in France at the moment has just been an absolute night and day. Yeah, changed how I see things for sure.
So then, Kelan, if those spaces were gone, say across the Sperrins, or changed beyond recognition, what would we lose as a society, coming directly from your experience there?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I would take it for granted nearly when I go home. I go home to see my parents now and then, and I just jump on the bike and I don't even think twice to go to these places. I know the usual long loop that I do in Morzine and in the Sperrins, and I wouldn't even think twice to think that maybe it's blocked off because of something, or the closer I get to where I want to be, it's you're not allowed to go there. I can't even consider that being an option because I've been doing it for so long and it's been open and accessible for so long. Just about what we spoke about earlier, I don't think stuff like that you'd realize how hard it would hit until it's there, until there is a point or a place that you've been going to for years and all of a sudden you're not allowed to access that anymore, and then that area only grows bigger and bigger, and before you know it, you're completely cut out of a zone that used to be, wildlife protected or the right to roam, and accessibility was really easy and you used to park there and walk your dog or whatever, and all of a sudden that's not accessible anymore by law.
Yeah.
And I really think until it actually would happen, you'd realize how much of an effect it would have for sure. Yeah.
So if there was one lesson the Sperrins gave you, what is it that maybe you still carry to this day?
One lesson.
One gift? One...
Yeah. I probably should have read these questions before I've gone here, shouldn't I? One lesson for sure is I would say the ability. I don't know how to put this in words, but like to be like there sort of that responsibility and to go and be by yourself and go explore these places by yourself and not someone holding your hand. I feel that's been into my everyday life now for sure. I like to move to this new place and over the last 2 weeks just constantly been exploring it, whether that be on a bike or walking or out with the dog. And that's definitely something I carry into my everyday life now, is just exploring. I see a mountaintop now and I go to the top of it no matter what route or way we have to do to get there. And that's kind of embedded into my brain now, where that's just what I do, and that's what I did when I was younger in the Sperrins, and that's what I do every day now. And I'm so lucky to be able to call that my job now as well, which is absolutely amazing. But for sure, that's a lesson of being able to explore, how to do it properly, and just being able to explore for sure. That's what I do every day now.
Brilliant. So you will really wish you'd read these questions now when I come to the next question. So there's two questions I ask at the end of every podcast, and the first one is, can you recommend, who would you love to hear next on this podcast? Someone whose voice who you think would add to this conversation?
I think actually a real good voice on this stuff would be Gary Donaldson.
Okay.
You know Gary well.
Yeah.
I think he would be able to deliver what I would say, but from more of like a perspective from like the council, and someone that actually is involved now in the Glens and the Sperrin so much with accessibility and building trails and making the mountains suitable for everyone.
Yeah.
I think he would be a great candidate. I think he would be able to preach what I'm preaching, just with a lot better language put to it for sure. He's a fascinating perspective on it. Anytime we get talking about this stuff, he has so many more valuable points that I just wouldn't consider that he brings forward. But you should definitely get him on. I think that would be a great conversation.
And thank you for that. And he had him in my head. So I'll get Kelan on here, then I'll go after Gary.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think he should. Yeah. He's heavily involved. I know right now he's actually starting to, under himself, maintain the Gorton trails and getting volunteers up there regularly to maintain the place.
That's great.
So he would be a fantastic person to have on.
Yeah, I'll suss him out after this. And finally, what gives you hope that we can keep these wild places wild?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, isn't it? Keeping these places wild for sure. I mean, it comes down to the people. Really does. Things like what you're doing yourself and getting a bit of footfall and movement behind these type of things. Like I said earlier, I don't think you realize what's there until it's gone sometimes. And by that stage, it's too late. Reading into what I've read and what I've experienced around the world is these companies will bring only what they see as benefits and positives, and they read fantastic on paper and articles, and they bring work and jobs. But I really, from my experience, these things are exploited for profit and money, and they'll leave behind their mess, and that'll be that, and it'll be too late. And I really think a large company coming over to the small hills of Sperrins and saying that it's going to be environmentally friendly and this, that, and the other, I really struggle to see that. I would say it's mainly exploited for the commodities and the profit, and then when they're done, they'll leave, and they'll leave behind what they've done. I'd love to be able to return home at some point and live where I grew up, and being able to look up at the same mountains and it just be the same and kept the way it always has been from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Younger generation for sure. That would be the ideal outcome, I think.
Well, hopefully we'll live long enough to see that sea coming home. Kelan, thanks very much for your contribution on the podcast. Great to have you here today. Great to get your perspective. And it's an entirely different perspective from many that have been on before you. And I'm so delighted that you agreed to do it. So thanks again.
Yeah, not a problem. I think what you're doing is fantastic. A lot of people have so much stuff to say, but if nobody hears about it, then it just gets blown away in the wind. So keep on keeping on and keep doing what you're doing for sure.
Kelan's story takes us home in a different way. It reminds us that landscape can raise a person, shaping courage, balance, and trust in life itself. The Sperrins did that for him, as they have for so many other kids, giving space to fall, to get up again, and to learn what strength really means. For young people, those hills can be a lifeline. They offer room to move, to think, to breathe. Out there, far from screens and noise, the mind settles, the heart steadies. It's where the imagination begins to stretch the legs. When that kind of place is altered or lost, something in us falters also. Protecting the uplands is about keeping that relationship alive between people and place, between past and future. Kelan carries that bond whenever he rides, and his story reminds us how deeply the land lives on in the people who love it. You've been listening to the Save Our Sperrins podcast, Voices from the Frontline. Thank you for joining us today. All the links you'll need, from campaign updates to our social media pages, as well as links shared by today's guests and resources mentioned in the conversation, are available in the show notes. Please take a moment to share this podcast with friends, neighbours, or anyone who cares about protecting our land and communities. And don't forget to hit the follow button on your podcast platform. It really helps the algorithm spread these voices further. Together, our voices are stronger. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep standing with the land, the water, the air, and the people who protect them.